Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We are going to have a session on information security management systems. We are going to cover IS 7001 in today's session. So the agenda for today's meeting is we're going to understand the family of ISO series of standard, ISO 27000 series. We're going to cover what is ISO 27001, which is the topic of our training today. What are the advantages of ISO 27001? We are also going to cover the various domains in ISO 27001. We'll also have towards the end steps and the roadmap for implementing ISO 27001 for your organization. As far as the learning objectives are concerned, we are going to cover we are going to gain some understanding of the information security management system. To put it briefly, I would like to call it as ISMS. Then we will also cover the measures that are required to protect your sensitive information. There are two types of sensitive information, like personally identifiable information and PHI, which is the health information, and also prioritize what needs to be done. And we follow a PDCA method, which is plan, do, check, and act, which is the traditional method for implementation. We'll also be seeing about what are the requirements in the context of an organization, and how to prepare for the ISO 27001 certification audit. We'll be covering in today's session. Cover the various aspects of information security management systems. We are also going to cover the various aspects of how do you take care of protecting the sensitive information. In the case of bank, we have PII, which is the personally identifiable information, such as the cardholder details, such as cardholder number, the expiry date, the CVC or CVV, and also other information like Aadhaar number, PAN number, social security number, account details. These are all PI information. We also need to protect the PHI, which is the protected health information, which are very important from a medical point of view. And we'll also be prioritizing what needs to be done. We'll be following the PDCA method for implementing a project, which is the traditional method of implementing a project. It involves plan, do, check, and act. So basically, we'll be planning, implementing, managing, monitoring, and maintaining a information security management system, in short, ISMS. And we'll be covering how to interpret the requirements as far as the organization is concerned, and how to prepare for an ISO 27001 certification audit. We'll be covering these aspects. So coming to information security, so these are the family of various standards of ISO 27001. ISO 27000 covers the overview and has the vocabulary. 27001 is basically the information security management systems. It covers the requirements. ISO 27002 is also information security management system, but focuses on the code of practice. ISO 27003 is also ISMS, but it gives the implementation guidance. ISO 27004, actually the information security management. It covers the monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. And 27005 is the information security risk management. Then ISO 27018 is the code of practice to protect PI information in public clouds. 27,031 is for how do you ensure uh, the business continuity. So it covers the guidelines for information and communication technology. 27,032 covers the guidelines for cybersecurity. So these 9 standards are the family of ISO 27,000 standards. Now, first and foremost, you need to know what is information. So information is nothing but discrete measurement of data which are facts provided or learned about something or someone. So it has value. Information has got value, and there are various forms of information. Some are tangible, some are intangible. The tangible ones are something that we normally print, uh, something which is like a guideline or a policy or a procedure. Uh, could be an application form, it could be a brochure, even whatever we scribble on a sticky note as preparation, as class notes can also be tangible information. Then we have plastic cards like credit card, PAN card, Aadhaar card. These are all tangible information. Intangible is something where you don't print, only the soft copy is maintained, or it is in memory, stored in cloud. Anything which is in any format, could be a Word, PPT, could be a PDF or a picture format, or even a document without an extension. That is also intangible. Then source code for various applications, database. Then even the information stored in the memory is also intangible. So there are 3 main aspects of information security. First is, we call it as the CII triad. C stands for confidentiality, which means that whatever information is to be shared with one individual, that information cannot be shared with any other individual. Suppose I am going to share this individual through other means, then the confidentiality is lost. If I'm going to share some piece of document with you, and tomorrow you find out that piece of information has been stolen and is now with another person, so then the confidentiality is lost. Integrity is the information which is there is sacrosanct and it cannot be modified, changed, or deleted without any permission. So if you're storing a file in the cloud at 9 a.m. Eastern time, and you check the same file at 2 p.m. Eastern time, there should not be change in the file unless there is some backup running. So the file should be as it is, and all the information should be intact. If it is 10 GB file at 9 a.m., when you check at 2 p.m., it should be the same size. There cannot be any change, no new letter even can be introduced. So that is integrity. Availability is, most of the software, hardware have to work 24/7. So the availability has to be 100%. Like network, for example, has to operate at 100%. In some cases, we do allow 99.999%. But it is important that we have a robust system that works for 100% availability. And there are other things like authenticating. Nowadays, you're authenticating your accounts when you're going to HDFC Bank. You have to first authenticate that you are the right person. So you get an OTP on your mobile. You have to authenticate yourself. Authorize is when you sign a check, you authorize it. The authorized holder only can sign the check. Okay, only the authorized signatories can sign the check. Auditing is actually reviewing whatever has happened, and you should have proper traceability. Non-repudiation, that you should be able to identify if there are any changes done to the document. You should be able to trace back. You should be able to maintain a proper version control. So we talked about CIA is one of the fundamental pillars. So confidentiality ensures that information is accessible only to the authorized person. Integrity means that data and information can be trusted. So normally we do encryption, or by hashing algorithms, we ensure integrity so that no one else can modify or amend it or even delete it. Availability is through proper configuration and implementing redundancy in the infrastructure so that you have 100% availability or even 99.99% availability. Authentication is the process of validating the identity of the registered user before allowing access to the protected resource. Like when you're going to open your online account and you're putting the credentials, at that time you get an OTP on your mobile. So that means there is a second level of authentication which is being done by you to authenticate the account. Authorization is basically process of validating that the authenticated user has been granted permission to access the requested resource. Like uh, when you're running an office and it is protected by biometric access, you normally do not allow a visitor to enter the facility. So he will not be authorized to enter the facility because he will not be having the access card reader, and he will not be authorized to use any third party's access card reader. So it is very clear that without proper authorization, you cannot enter the secure facility. And auditing is basically an assurance that anyone will be evaluated on his or her performance or behavior relating to something for which they are responsible. So we do auditing and check whether whatever was to be done, was it really done or not done? If was it partially done or was it fully done, or was it not at all done? So you'll be doing this as part of your auditing. Non-repudiation is basically the is the assurance that someone cannot deny something. So if there is an email which has been sent and sender cannot deny that he has sent the message, and the recipient cannot deny having received it. Okay, now coming to ISO 27001, the latest version of ISO 27001 came in 2013. That is why you're finding next to ISO 27001, you're also finding the year, the last year when the standard got revised. So ISO 27001 is actually the standard for establishing an information security management system, how to design an information security management system, how to develop the policies, how to develop the procedures, how to deploy it, how to maintain it, how to ensure that there is a continual improvement in information security will all be part of ISMS. ISMS is implementation is a strategic decision by the senior management, and you have to design your business and security objectives your risks and control requirements, and what are the processes for which you want to deploy ISO 27001. So you need to build the complete framework for ISO 27001 involving the people, processes, and technology. And ISO 27001 has been revised to meet the changing demands of the market, the changing risks profile which we are seeing. Like, for example, we are having more digitization. We are having more data which is stored now in the cloud. So additional standards have been incorporated, controls have been incorporated to take care of these requirements, to do a proper risk assessment. These are continual changes which are done on the standard, and ISO 27001 can be assessed formally and it can also be certified. So what are the advantages of ISMS? It improves the security posture. You'll be able to meet your security objectives. It will result in better governance. Your stakeholders will get the confidence that whatever data that we are handling, whatever data that we are processing, whatever data that we are storing, whatever data that we are transmitting is safe and secure. It ensures that we are conforming to the rigor of a information security management system standard. It also reduces the cost of breaches and make sure that overall there is a cost reduction, and it also improves the brand and it will aid in marketing. So but before implementing ISMS, we have to define the scope. So in this, we have to talk about the nature of the business, the organization, location, what are the information assets and technologies. If there are any exceptions, you have to note it down. And there is a statement of applicability, and wherein you document the various requirements and say that these are applicable. If something is not applicable, and it should be justified and documented in the statement of applicability. The auditors will check this documentation. This is a very important piece of information. We have to do an inventory of all assets. What type of assets we have? Is it software, hardware? Is it a paper asset? Is it something which is lying on a CD, or is it lying on a USB? Is it a piece of software, or is it just a hardware, or is it a paper in a file? We have to be clear what format it is there. Is it tangible, intangible? What location is it available? Is the backup available? The license, we should have genuine license if we are running software, and we should also be aware about the business in terms of what processes depend on the asset. We'll now talk about risk management. Risk, as the term indicates, is actually something to do with uncertainty. So basically, a situation wherein you're exposed to some danger or a contingency. So could be a disaster too. So basically, risk management is a process wherein you identify and control the risks which organization faces. And risk management covers all the facets of the business, the sales, the operations, the technology, the infrastructure, human resources. It covers all the facets. It covers finance too. the risks have to be identified and risks have to be controlled so that overall the risks are mitigated. So risk identification is a process of examining an organization current information technology security situation. So basically trying to identify the organization assets and identify the various threats. Threats could be natural, like it could be fire, or it could be earthquake, or it could be volcano, or it could be flooding due to a tsunami, for example, or it could be caused by human being, like theft, or it could be some sort of a probably some sort of a phishing attack, which is a combo of technology plus human ransomware attack, or it could be an asset which has failed and there is a breakdown of a critical asset. Like, for example, the power has gone or your AC inside the server room has gone, has there is a breakdown and AC is not available for 3 hours. So if you have a backup AC, then it is fine. If there is no backup AC, then you are in a real disaster. Similarly, if you have got some equipment in the basement of a building and there is a flooding and the basement gets flooded, then it's again a disaster. So we have to identify the various threats and threat agents which affect the assets. So assets can be classified in terms of people, be it employees, could be third parties, vendors. Processes are business processes, information security processes. Technology would be your applications, database, software, network, and hardware. Services are the processes that you do and which are decided based on various SLAs that you agree with your clients. Based on all this, you will do a risk valuation. You identify the assets and their value. Value is determined by the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of that particular asset. And identify the threats and identify the threat agents. So the formula for asset risk is the formula for the potential risk is a multiplication of asset value, severity of vulnerability, and severity of the threat. And basically, you have an asset value which is based on the weightage of a particular asset. So suppose you are giving a weightage of C, I, and A, one each. So if something is 3, that means that it's very high, 2 is medium, and 1 is low. So each of these factors, C, I, A, can be graded on a point of 1 to 3. So the value is a combination of C plus I plus A, and then severity is on a scale of 1 to 3. Uh, the severity of vulnerability. Basically, the severity is based on the susceptibility or flaw uh, based on which the attacker is able to exploit the flaw. And if you do not have proper controls, then you'll be able to easily overcome the we'll be very, very I would say that if an attacker is able to access the flaw and he'll be able to exploit the flaw, then organization will be at a very high risk. The scale will be from 1 to 3. 1 is low, 2 is medium, 3 is high. And then severity of threat. It's based on impact and probability of the threat. Here too, it can be 1 is low, 2 is medium, 3 is high. So the potential risk is the product of the asset value, the severity of vulnerability, and severity of. So we're going to cover the quantitative methodology for risk scoring. The potential risk is the product of asset value, severity of threat, and vulnerability. The asset value is based on the individual asset value and the weightage of the asset. So uh, each of these assets can be classified on a scale of 1 to 3 for CIA, where C is confidentiality, I is integrity, A is availability. You rate for all the 3 factors, C, I, and A. So the value of information asset is determined by the sum of the 3 attributes, C, I, and A. Severity of the threat is basically determined based on the impact as well as the probability of the threat. And here too, it is on a scale of 1 to 3. 1 is low, 2 is medium, and 3 is high. Vulnerability is based on the susceptibility of the flaw and how much it can be exploited. If there are no controls, then vulnerability is very high. If you have adequate controls, it can be 2. And if the controls are excellent, then vulnerability will be low, which is 1. So to calculate, for example, the impact and likelihood, how to calculate the severity of threat. If the it is a product of impact and probability. So if likelihood of exposure is high and impact is high, then it is HH. While if likelihood of exposure is low and impact is high, then it becomes LH. If it is medium, it becomes LM. If it is low, it becomes LL. We have to take action wherever the value is HH. We have to take immediate action. If it is HM, MH, HL, or LH, it is high. If it is MM, ML, or LM, it is medium. And if it is LL, it is low. So risk assessment, we quantify the risk, and based on the risk, we determine what action needs to be taken and what controls we need to deploy. So there is a risk treatment plan, which is based on the risk assessment. We identify the appropriate management action. We also identify the resources and responsibilities for dealing with the various risks. And it is also in short form called as RTP. And whatever risks are residual after taking the action have to be signed off by the management. We can never have zero risk. There'll be some risk left, and that needs to be signed off. And even if that risk is not acceptable, then we have to revisit the process and look at the controls again. So the risk mitigation plan involves updating policies and procedures, deploying additional controls, or doing a risk transfer by doing insurance or by taking an insurance policy or or delegating the jobs to somebody else. So session 3 is on the various aspects of 27001. So 27001 has 114 controls in 14 domains and 35 control categories. All the 114 controls are important, and you cannot take a deviation on any control. So at a high level, you have the security domains followed by the control domains and then the controls. The security domains are 14, control domains are 35, and controls are 114. Security domains is a high level security topic like access control. The control domain is basically the subtopics, like it covers who is authorized to enter the floor. So there should be some authorization by the manager before allowing entrance. So this is the control domain, and followed by the control by stating that every month the authorized list is reviewed to find out if any unauthorized person has been given access. Typically, when people leave the organization, you are supposed to revoke the access within 24 hours. It is beyond, then it leads to leakages. So we have to control that. We're going to cover the security domains and its deployment. At a high level, we have the information security policy and how we are organizing the information security in terms of having an organization structure, which will involve the various departments. We'll have a chief information security officer. There could be somebody overall overseeing the management committee. So all these things are part of the information security organization. Then we have the human resources security. There are 6 controls. So how do you recruit people? What is the basis of recruiting? What type of background verification you do? How do you provide training to the resources? How do you make sure that there is a proper code of conduct for all the employees? So all these are covered here. Then in asset management, there are 10 controls. How you're managing the various assets, software and hardware assets, how you're handling those assets, how you're taking care of the asset valuation, how you're taking care of the CIA will be covered in this. Access control is basically how we are allowing accesses to various critical areas holding sensitive information. Could be uh, a server room, a data center, could be your operations area. So how we are providing accesses, who's authorizing them, do you prevent tailgating, do you have controls which if a person leaves the organization, his accesses are revoked within 24 hours. So these are the controls that you will deploy. Similarly, cryptography deals with what type of encryption you are following, then what type of physical and environmental security you follow, covers your what type of security mechanism you have at the perimeter. Do you have guards? Do you have a boundary wall? How do you do you do any type of frisking? Do you ensure that there is surveillance? How do you ensure that you're monitoring what people are doing? Do you have 24/7 surveillance by cameras? So these are 15 controls. Then operation security, there are 14 controls, how you are taking care of security within operations. How you are taking care of security in communications, there are 7 controls. Basically, when you are sending emails, for example, how are you deploying proper transport security? Are you ensuring that there is proper encryption? Is there a 2-factor authentication when you are deploying, for example, Office 365? How you are doing system acquisition, development, and maintenance? Whenever a change is happening in the system, how are you handling this? Is there a proper maker checker while the changes are being evaluated? Is the person authorizing the change different from the person who's requesting the change? Are the changes being monitored and feedback sought from the end user? So all these things will be there. Supplier relationships, how we are doing, how we are outsourcing your work, have you defined SLAs with your subcontractors, have you signed NDAs with your subcontractors, have you ensured that the information security policies and controls are known to your subcontractors? Then information security incident management, there are 7 controls wherein we talk about what will happen if there is an incident. Somebody bringing a phone, mobile phone inside an area where credit cards are being processed. It's a strict no-no. So any violation of security should be treated very with severe repercussions, and there should be some action plan for all these incidents. Some incidents are caused by human error, some are caused by wanton behavior. So the human firewall has to be protected. And if the human firewall is compromised, then there are incidents. So how do you take care of these incidents? You have to do a proper root cause analysis and act upon those incidents so that the incidents are nipped in the bud and they do not repeat. So incidents which are high severity or incidents which are repeating on and off have to be investigated. A root cause analysis has to be done and necessary countermeasures taken so that the incidents do not recur again. Then we will also cover business continuity management. There are 4 controls. How do you, what do you do when there is a disaster? And what are the critical objectives in terms of RTO, RPO? Do you have a cold site or do you have a hot site? All these things will be covered in business continuity management. And then we talked about audit. So the last section deals with compliance, and there are 8 controls which deals with the regulatory requirements and other uh, mandatory requirements as far as the business is concerned, which could be either coming from the client, or it could be coming internally, or it could be through some third party. There are these security domains are governed by the policies, which is the management intent, and the how part is governed by the ISMS procedures and implementation through proper ISMS formats and templates. So these are the various 14 control domains. The last section which we're going to deal is about the challenges, experience sharing. So implementation program, there should be a proper method of planning it, doing this, executing it, and reviewing it. If there are any gaps, correcting it, do a course correction, and act upon it. The training is very important because nowadays you have various type of attacks which are targeted at the individual. These are called as social engineering attacks, and security training is very important. So you should have a proper documentation which covers the ISMS policy, objectives, the scope, the procedures, your risk assessment methodology, the risk treatment plan, your various records, your what's the scope and statement of applicability are equally important. Then you should do the review, the organization ISMS at least once a year, and there should be opportunities for improvement, and the review should be documented and maintained. And these are part of the check phase of the PDCA cycle, and any corrective actions must be managed accordingly. So your certification audit checks your policy objectives your audit results, how you're monitoring the various incidents, your corrective actions, and management review. So you're able to show that your organization follows all these 14 domains and 114 controls. And the certification body, which is a third party, it gains the assurance that organization information security risk assessment is in line with the scope of the ISMS, and only if they are thoroughly satisfied about your organization's commitment to information security and execution of various controls, they will be able to give the certificate of compliance. Thank you.